I guess we are in. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Happy
Friday. And happy Saturday to the rest of the world.
I agree. Yes, we hope you're all doing very, very well. It's been such an amazing day. Lots of interesting weather and surprise snow in the spring.
It started snowing again, so.
Yes. So everyone, welcome to another episode of Let's Be Honest with Leo and Luna at Lotus Path Holistics. And today, hey Vanessa, how are you?
Hi, Vanessa.
We're going to be talking about intuition. It's going to be a great, great show. So let's start off with introducing ourselves. So my name is Leo, and I am a past life therapist and spiritual practitioner, as well as a spiritual educator. I love educating people on different spiritual topics. It's been a great inspiration of mine, and I love what I do.
And my name is Luna, and I'm a karmic resolution facilitator. I work with past lives across lifetimes. And hi, Sharon. And I help people resolve their karma, limiting beliefs, recurring patterns in this lifetime.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, last week we were actually trying to get on Facebook. Facebook's having an issue. So now we're in a weird spherical library. But we were talking about manifestation and creativity. It's a gift that people don't usually understand. So we're definitely happy to be able to clarify what that means. Today we're going to be talking about intuition. Intuition is one of those inner spiritual gifts. Inner gifts means that it's just something that's natural within you, something that comes out, and it's natural with the development of who you are. So it's something that we looked at extensively, and it's quite interesting, intuition, because it's not only just intuition itself, it's also a universal consciousness, a universal mind itself. And it's all about the universal consciousness in, the inner knowing that we all have, as well as the truth-seeking ability that we all have deep within. So definitely feel free to ask us any questions along the way, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have so that we could actually help you along your way to understand intuition. So intuition itself. Intuition is about the universal nature that we have. Basically, when I say universal nature, I mean our interconnectedness to everything. So our connectedness to nature, to animals, our connectedness to other people. It is all about the universal nature. And then through intuition, we have an inner knowing, we have, intuitive senses, and we're going to talk about those as well, and you're going to go extensively on that. And then also the ability to be able to see things in a truthful light. So yes, the power of intuition is the ability to access your inner knowledge and your inner consciousness in deep and awesome ways. So
a very, very interesting thing that I wanted to say is that those who know a little bit of psychology about unconscious mind, subconscious mind, conscious mind, and also the superconscious. So intuition, in a very simple way, is the link between our subconscious mind and conscious with the superconscious. So the superconscious is, I would just say, the universal mind, as we say, in a sense. Mm-hmm. And so this is why we're connected to everything. And so sometimes, I would just say perhaps intuition is a high form of empathy as well.
Yeah,
so when we know where someone is, what they're doing, and we're like, how would I know that? And sometimes people are like, I didn't really empathize with the person, so I don't think it's that. So this is your intuition, where picking, bits and, pieces like here and there, and so it collects information, and it creates, like, how about the background, like your inner library. That's exactly what that is. And I have worked with intuition quite a lot. I have to admit that in the beginning, like the very, very early years in my 20s, oh my God, I never trusted my intuition. I just thought, well, maybe just luck, or maybe just a coincidence that I saw something coming. But there were situations, though, that when I almost had actually an accident with a motorcycle. I was with a friend, and so I almost saw a glimpse intuitively that something bad is going to happen. And so I remember that it was raining, right? And I don't know what happened with the motorcycle, but it I was sliding on the side, and then if I had like my head like down on the street, it would just, I would be dead technically, right? But then intuitively, I felt that I had to protect myself, so I pulled my head the other way, and somehow when I got off the motorcycle, I just had only a couple scratches on my knees, and that was it. And everyone said it's a miracle. What happened? And I said, well, I saw it. I felt that something bad is going to happen. And usually, that's what it is. I feel that people start trusting their intuition when the bad things happen. Oh, it could be a medical issue. It could just be maybe a friend or family you're very, very close. You feel that something bad is going to happen. It is when we're most heightened, right?
That's so true. Yeah, because intuition is definitely about the immediate understanding without your conscious reasoning coming through. So when you feel something deep within, it just clicks just like that. And it's about listening to your inner voice and things that are in or out of your control. So it's quite an interesting journey that we have taken through past life therapy. And we're going to sort of just explain to you the difference between past lives and present life so that we can have sort of a foundation for a conversation about intuition and answering all of your questions if you have any questions. So to me, past lives, intuition was more of a second knowing. In past lives, I've seen others and myself utilizing intuition in a natural way. In this life, you have to get through so many illusions just to figure out who you are and what your inner voice is all about. And in past lives, that was never the case. Not at all. So it's such a different story. Again, always the question of why. And it's just interesting. But we come from a world and a consciousness where we actually are used to our intuition. We can all remember intuition very well. So I know that when we get lied to, it comes to an alarm. It's like, when we don't know what's going on and you find out that there was something always there that you really didn't know was there, it always alarms us. And the reason that is because we all remember actually having a deeper intuition in past lives. So in this life, and when intuition is separate from us, it really scares us, in my opinion. And because like the things I've seen before and now, it's so much harder to have intuition now. And what's your experience actually with intuition versus past and present?
Yeah, so from my past lives, and also I remember other people, no one really mentioned intuition. Like that word didn't really exist, because everyone was naturally intuitive. And so, when something is so natural, sometimes it doesn't even have a name. It is what it is, right? But in this lifetime, I would just say, and maybe a couple lifetimes before, technically, like I would just say maybe the last decades, or the last a couple 100 years in a sense, where we have to give it a name. And because we feel that it is something outside of ourselves. And so we cannot really define what that is. Yeah. So we just try to speculate and we just call it intuition. And there's another thing that I want to mention where there's intuition and the animal instincts, right? Some people are like, so what is really the difference? Because intuition feels like more feminine in a sense. I would just say that instinct is more masculine, right? And so energetically wise, but they're not far from each other because intuition and your instincts, they try to protect you both ways.
That's true.
And it's a really, really big one. So that's one part. And the second part with past lives, I just realized that not a long time ago, actually, it was like a really, really nice realization that intuition is actually our memories from our past lives, parallel lives, and even future lives, in a sense where intuition connects time and space for us. And it's like incredible, right? Where anytime you can tap into time and you can benefit from it. And I feel this is why many, many people are scared of it, because when you try to define time, some people say time is linear, some people say that it's not. And then there is a huge confusion, about time. There's quantum physics. There's a bunch of stuff that's being said about time and space. But I would just say that from my experience, I realized that every time that I'm intuitive, and when I work with my soul clients as well, and when they talk about their experience with intuition, we just realize that it is something that they're sensing throughout time and space. It could be their past lives. It could just be a parallel life. Sometimes it's even identity. You cannot even identify where is it coming from, and that's an amazing gift. And it's kind of like, I was just exploring quantum physics without exploring it really, and it can be confusing for many, many people.
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's very true. That intuition is, I think it's just like the High Priestess card, where it's like,
Yeah.
because High Priestess and the Moon, these are about intuition, and it is a gateway in this lifetime. Unfortunately, in past lives, it's not necessarily a gateway. It's almost like a second knowing. So like almost like you see things normally, but then you hear something else. That was kind of like intuition was in this lifetime. You have to actually go through a gateway to feel and see things. It's different, very different. But that's a really good metaphor that I understand. But let's talk about actually, okay, because this is about listening to our intuition, which is very difficult in this very, very busy modern world. And it is hard, even in my experience, listening to my own intuition, because I did not know what was real and what was fake.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest difficulty of studying spirituality and religion and science as well, is to try to understand what is fake and what is real, what is just answers put in there just to answer the question, but what about thinking, So I had a really hard time trying to understand what was real and what was fake, who was lying and who was telling me the truth. And intuition, I had to build it over time. Intuition became sort of like second knowing, like my higher self knowing was the difference between those things. And that's more of what we're going to talk about next week, which is more of like how to discern truth. But in general, intuition should be truth. It should be everything. And to me, it was hard. So that's because the gift is intuition, but the curse is illusion. And with every gift comes a curse. It's just the natural way of life. So let's talk about illusion. Every gift has a curse. And this is where it's coming from, where illusion can be real. I mean, it can really get in the way because we live in a world filled with like lies and smoke and mirrors, But it's like intuition really messes up in that way. Yeah, illusion.
Yeah.
Illusion.
I want actually to mention something from my childhood that I do remember very, very well. And kind of like it was the first time where I trusted my intuition. And then I would just tell you the story to see how people can dismiss you in a sense, and then you can start doubting yourself later on in life. So I was, I think, 9 or 10 years old, and I was at school, right? So every day, our teacher, he had kind of like a little habit where he would just say, kids, just go grab my newspaper, and when you come back, I will just give you, money to buy snacks. And so the little store, it was a convenience store, 5 minutes away from school, would just do like quite often every day. And so there was one day, I even remember the day was a Friday, no joke. It was a Friday where we were excited for the weekend, so it was like, everything was like heightened. And so the moment that we stepped out of school, I felt something was not right. And I didn't say anything. I was with 2 other kids. I didn't say anything. But then outside the convenience store, there was a black car. And for me, it was kind of like, I don't know how it got into my head. That time, just like my thought process, right? I'm like, why a black car is triggering me? I just feel that something is not right. And I told the kids, how about we don't get the newspaper? And they're like, why? I'm like, something doesn't feel right. They're like, oh, you're silly, don't say these things. And before we go grab the newspaper, 2 guys came out of the car and they tried to kidnap us. And I'm like, run. So we ran back to school. It was like really scary. I went back home and I told my step-parents. And I'm like, this and this and that happened. And I felt like it was the first moment I still remember. It was like so magical. I'm like, I saw something. I saw it happening. Is this magic? What is that? When you don't have a word to describe it. And they're saying, oh no, it's nothing. It's nothing special. It's a coincidence. Just get back to earth in a sense. Just like don't think like that. And I believe that it happened quite a lot of times. And then later on, when I was in my 20s, I didn't even trust that part of myself because I was told so many times that no, it's not normal to trust whatever you saw, whatever you felt, so just let that go. And that goes what you said about illusions, right? And so there is the part of ourselves that is literally being, how would I say it? Mirrored in a sense, right? Like with like the high priestess,
Yeah.
right? So there's a part of yourself that believes in, the part of yourself that can have access to time and space, and there's the other part of yourself that mirrors and says, no, this is how reality is. These things don't happen. These things kind of like out of a fairy tale, and or magical stuff, and magic for many people is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And
true.
so when you've been shut down so many times, you're fighting yourself. And so this is why sometimes it sleeps, out. Hi, Simone. So sometimes you're like, oh, today I trust my intuition. Then 2 days later, you're like, I don't trust a damn thing.
It's true. Yeah. Hey, everyone. So yeah, speaking about intuition and how it deals with lies, it's hard because I think that the illusion is just what you're taught.
Yeah.
Because, when there's a situation where you really dig deep down and you feel, well, something isn't right here, it's other people's voices telling you that, something is right and whatever, but you have to listen to the inner voice and know something is wrong. We all call that intuition something, like speaking to higher minds and guides and whatever, but it's all about actually understanding that you should know things before you actually feel it and see it. So that much is true. So furthermore, what I feel about illusion is that, understanding illusion is key to understanding intuition, because you have to be, okay, in order to solidify a proper intuitive sense, you really need to understand illusion. You need to understand the lies. If you can't tell the difference between the truth and the fake, you don't really have a advanced intuition, because there's those type of people in the spiritual community that are like letting everything in, like my intuition tells me that the wall is telling me an answer, or the Archangel Michael, or whatever, and this is great and it's probably somewhat true, but you have to narrow down your message, and that's the point. You have to get to what exactly the message is about, what you're hearing in your subconscious mind. So if you find someone that's just relaying message and just all this stuff is coming in, it's time to advance that skill and start to enhance your psychic abilities, which we're about to talk about, because you can't let intuition run amok and you just seeing everything, and then some things are real, some things are fake, some things are good, some things are bad. That's just like eating. Oh, I eat because I can eat. Okay, well then if you eat fried food every day, then what exactly are you eating? You can't just eat because you want to eat. You need to actually eat with mindfulness. And I think the same applies to intuition. I know it does. Actually, because it's like you have to be able to be mindful of what you're letting into your mind. And that's something that is key to understanding. You have to be able to understand that you don't let everything in, you don't believe everything. You need to question things. That is the proper way to go about intuition. You have to be intelligent about it. You have to be intelligent about it. So that is intuition. But I posted a video on Wednesday, and I'm going to reiterate these tips to you, because my personal tips on how to actually cultivate your intuitive abilities is very simple. So intuition is the key to understanding psychic abilities. And psychic abilities include, you know about psychic abilities more than I do.
Yeah, what you want me to say? All of them? You mean all the clairs?
Yes, all the clairs.
Clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyant. So they're very like French. So you have to say like with an accent.
You have to say with an accent. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. They even go further to say like there's I forgot, like clair touch, clair smell.
Yeah, it's all your senses heightened technically.
Yeah, just clear senses, like spiritual senses. So psychic abilities is how you take that spiritual sense and you put it into your physical life and you start to manifest those things. And being a clairvoyant myself, I practiced quite a bit, and understanding how intuition led that way, well, I could say yes, absolutely. Intuition is key to understanding how I can see things from past lives or present lives. And if you want to understand yourself on how to actually manifest your abilities, to cultivate it, to build the bridge, you actually do have to, think about your intuition, think about the truth and the lies, but also to understand that you can't just be psychic and just like, oh, look at me with all my abilities without having a good intuition. You have to be able to build your mind connected to everything else. Otherwise, your intuition is subpar. Then, therefore, your psychic abilities are subpar. So I do have people who come up to me on in person and on Facebook, and they ask me about enhancing their psychic abilities, which includes OBEs and
lucid dreaming.
And seeing their past lives themselves. Like even past lives needs a very good intuition because, well, not necessarily, but it's about using intuition to guide you through past life regressions, past life memories. And my answers are always these 3 steps. So let me explain those to you so that you can understand. And then feel free to ask any of your questions along the way if you have them. So the number 1 step for me is about accepting your intuitive nature. What that means is accepting that intuition was already there and that you have these spiritual senses inside of you already, and you have to understand that you're a spiritual and intuitive person. And that's kind of difficult because people want to seek intuition, but they don't want to say, I was born intuitive. Who says that? Nobody, barely anyone says that. No one ever says,
yep,
I was born intuitive. I will always be intuitive. No, everyone's like, I am intuitive. I'm going to do this. I have these abilities. It's about how you speak because the truth of the matter is that you were born intuitive. You were born intuitive. You were born knowing exactly who you were. So why speak less than? That's what I want to know. So that's something is a problem for me because step 1 is about accepting your intuitive nature. Accepting that you've always had these abilities and accepting that you have to get out of your comfort zone to actually rediscover your inner knowledge. So it's about leading yourself in the right direction so that you could accept your intuition and your connection to all. So part of connecting to your intuitive nature is connecting to everything because then you'll feel and understand that your gifts come from everywhere. The animal kingdom, angels, guides, your family, just your inner knowing. Intuition comes from multiple places. So the first step to understanding intuition to me is accepting your intuitive nature and accepting that intuition is connected to the world, the universe. That's the universal consciousness. What do you think?
Well, the thing is that if you want to accept yourself as an intuitive person, you have to let go everything that you were told that you're not intuitive. Or all the moments that, you remember that others doubted you. Because this is how it starts. And, in the beginning,
that's true.
As a child, all children are intuitive. Show me one child that's not, right?
That's so
they know. And even especially when they see someone new, right? And they just say, oh, I don't like you. They know right up. And they get like, oh, don't talk like that. Don't talk like that. Shh, and then the kid knows just like, I don't like that person. And they just know what? Intuitively, they just know. And so every time that you judge the child, it creates a layer between them and their intuition. And so growing up, we come to a point where, hi Steffi. So we come to a point where we don't even remember our intuition. We don't even remember that we're being intuitive because every time that we say, as children, right, this is how I feel, and this is what I see, and every time you've been silenced, this is all that you remember. And growing up, to be able to accept everything and all that you are, you have to let go of everything that you're being told.
That's true, because in our journeys, it was the same. As I developed my own spiritual abilities and psychic abilities, I had to go back and understand that I was always psychic all along. And it's been a journey. It's even been up until this day that I had to understand that my abilities have been showing themselves since childhood, teenage years, adulthood. The gifts you have always been there. And if you don't understand that, then you don't have a foundation to step on.
Yeah.
Because you're acting like you'd be acting like spirituality just came about. It was just an interest. It was a hobby. No, spirituality is a lifestyle, and it's part of you. It is a part of your being, and to be spiritual is to be yourself. So for us, well, specifically for me, um, finding out my spiritual abilities as a child was so key to understanding who I am and to know that my intuition was always there as a kid, and I always knew these things. I always saw spirits. I always saw energies. I also understood past lives because of the way I was acting, and I knew who I was all along, even though it took me a rediscovery period as an adult, 10 plus years. But it worked. It worked, but it's important to understand that it's so key because when you don't understand that, you end up like me spending let's say like over 10-15 years trying to figure out a simple truth. Okay, let me give you a shortcut. Okay, share this with your friends and your family. The shortcut to understanding your intuitive abilities is not trying to pretend like it's something new. How about you go about it understanding that your intuitive nature comes from who you are? And that, I'm telling you, that perspective shift is the foundation to everything. Because if you don't do it now, you'll do it later. Like now, I do it now in these past years where I'll just like think about it and start to connect the dots and be like, wow, what I can do now connect to what I can do when I was 5 years old. When I connect to now, it connects to what I was going through when I was a teenager. And if you don't can make those connections, you end up like me doing it now while I'm already in the profession, wasting my time. And I could have just did this before if somebody had told me as a teenager that you were always intuitive, always. Don't ever question it. You were always intuitive. Everyone has it. You just have to figure out what style and what type was yours. That would have changed my entire spiritual journey. I could imagine who I could have been.
You're lucky when I was born in Greece.
Oh my God.
Because when you are in a small country where it's all about religion and intuition, meditation, crystals, anything spiritual is considered of the devil in a sense. And so it's even harder for you to connect with the part of yourself. But if you're in a country that's kind of like more open, because I mean, when I came to the US, I just realized, oh my God, people here are so open-minded. I mean, not everyone is that open-minded, but at least like it's more people, way more than they were in Greece.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that when I came here, it gave me a good amount of time to just go back and see everything through, and see with a clear mind, to understand. Where was in all that, and where was everyone else? The beliefs, that I was spiritual beliefs about a lot of things that was taught about Christianity. Yeah, so there you go. So I was born and raised in a satanic cult, so the other around. Yeah, I hear you, Steffi. So it's kind of like hard because. By the way, they're not far because I've spoken with quite a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and trust me, Satanism and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't even have much of a difference. The only difference is where they believe. It's all about fear, control, so technically the mindset is the same. And so when they tell you, they teach you that intuition is a bad thing, and it's all about what we tell you. You have to listen to that. They keep erasing the part of yourself that tries to come out and just embrace the gifts, and then you come 20 years later, 30 years later, you're like yeah, so I'm kind of like interested in spirituality, and people treat it, as Leo said, as a new thing. And sometimes people go to nice events, spiritual events. They buy crystals, and then they have maybe, let's have one tarot reading, and then like they kind of believe and they're like, but no, really, kind of like they're kind of torn, and that torn is exactly that duality between what is true and what is not true, because I mean they just start to take whatever resonates and sounds like ear pleasing, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and what's not ear pleasing, and I'm like, oh no, that's some fake stuff. That's not for me. That's
That's so true. Like we spoke to a friend recently who said something that was profound, which is that all Satanists are Christians.
Yeah, she's so smart.
Because technically they believe the same thing, just a different opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it kind of changes your perspective when you start to think about things in a different way. The same way you think about intuition, almost everyone that I've met, even myself, thought that intuition was a new thing.
Yeah.
To come to find out later in life, intuition was there all along. Are you serious? Because that's the whole point of these videos and lives for the past 3 weeks and the next 4 weeks, is to understand that spiritual gifts are from within. They are not new. They're old relics that were reawakening. And we don't add on top of anything. We build the foundation. But it's just so key. It's so key to understanding intuition. If you can't take this first step, how could you ever learn intuition? You'll just end up having to go back to the first step eventually. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, intuition is, as I said earlier, it is literally a door to the universe. And it's not gonna be scared. I mean, if you open the door and you're just floating in the sky, just floating between the stars. You're like, okay, so what is happening? And it is exactly that. It is the door to the unknown, and unknown is also within some parts of ourselves that we even forgot they exist. And this is why, to access your intuition, you need to do lots and lots of child healing, shadow work. There's quite a lot of there, because people who cannot access their intuition, it is because it's trauma related. And the moment that you're able to overcome it, boom, it's that moment that oh my God, when I heal from the part of myself that was holding me back, by diving into my shadow, it is when intuition sits just right there. It's right in the corner, and you could even have like a wall in front of you. It's just there. You don't even know it.
That's true. That's so true, because I remember even in our journeys in the beginning, we entered the door through spirituality to understand our intuition, and then we spent lots of time trying to figure out the difference between what was real and what was fake.
You know what it was?
It's just the beginning of intuition. You have to know what's the truth, and you have to be able to, which is we're going to talk about next week, which is you have to be intelligent. You have to build intelligence. You have to know and not ignore the signs when they're there, because spirituality is that process where you have to learn who you are and what is real about the world.
I want to say something interesting, and that just hit me. So on my when it was like my birthday was when I was 28, and I had a huge awakening. I mean, throughout my life I had different awakenings, right? But that was like the really big one, the really big shift where I actually said, okay, I keep like tiptoeing around it, but I know exactly where I need to be. And so one of the first big things that I did was like, do you remember the Indigo Children test? That's kind of like how me and Leo met, And so, do you remember that one question?
What was the question?
Are you intuitive? It was like one of the questions.
I know, right? That's true. Whenever someone asks you online, like, are you spiritual? They're like, are you intuitive though? Like, as if that's a type of person. I know that Pisces people like me happen to be more intuitive in our personality traits. We're just more intuitive with the personality that we have already. But that does not mean that other people are not intuitive. Not at all. I mean, if anything, somebody's a little bit more intuitive than me.
Well, but the thing is that it's a huge chapter about intuition, because intuition is in many things. It is the high priestess, but also the hangman. in tarot. And so we're talking about the moon, and we're also talking about Neptune. And so for people who love astrology, just look where your moon and where your Neptune are in your chart. And just by seeing where it is, it will show you how to unlock your intuition. Depending which house it is.
That's true. Astrology.
Yep.
So that's step one into like the first steps that you need to actually cultivate your intuitive abilities, because if you want to be psychic, you can't do that without actually understanding that you're always intuitive. What are you going to be like? I'm going to become psychic. I'm going to go get a certificate. I'm going to learn psychic abilities.
Yeah, that one.
No, you are reawakening psychic abilities that were already there. You can't learn, like, okay, it's so weird, but this is a truth that you'll find that is true throughout your life. You never learn anything new. You're just relearning what you've already known.
Yep.
And you never get into an industry that you've never been in. You never, meet people that you've never met. That doesn't happen. Nothing is new. Not in this world. Maybe in other worlds, not in this one. And the way that it works is just like that. So with psychic abilities, you never just, I learned a psychic ability today. I reawakened something that was already there all along. That's intuition. So these are just basic things, basic conscious awareness topics that you need to know. When you change your perspective, your life changes. So number 2 is about embracing your spiritual senses. So, it's about, understanding that you are a universal person and you're connected to everything, everyone, nature, animals, everything. So, having that, you have to accept your senses. You have to accept that when you perceive things, it's not just in a physical way. There's also spiritual ways. There's also spiritual ways of you perceiving things. So, for instance, when I meet someone, I think, I empathize, and I acknowledge that person's energy. So when you go about meeting someone and you don't acknowledge the energy, then that's not really tapping into your spiritual senses. Everyone has empathy. So it's about understanding that you have to start embracing what's already there. So when you do number 1, where you are actually embracing what's deep within you, then have to take the next steps to understand what are your spiritual gifts, and then embrace those things. Embrace what's already there, embrace the psychic abilities that you've already had, and whatever abilities that you're naturally attracted to, that's usually probably what it is. So definitely about that. You have to be able to open up your heart and your mind, and then you have to use the psychic abilities, the gifts that were deep within and unnoticed and within you. And you have to embrace your spirituality to enhance your senses. Because your imagination, everything you think in your mind is real. So it's really about that. So that step itself seems complex, but it's simple. It's that step actually what we were talking about, which is embracing what's already there. And embracing that everything that you do has a spiritual thing about it. And then when you embrace that, you understand that with your intuition, your psychic senses have to do with your normal senses. So now we're talking about clairvoyance. So it's different. Like my eyes, I can see you, but with my third eye, right? Like my senses, I can see more. So it's understanding that my sight has a spiritual sense. And that's the idea of clairvoyance. It's a psychic ability that comes off of intuition. It's off of an inner knowing that how I see. An inner knowing that becomes an inner existence. So, yeah.
I think that I wanted to mention, I've seen that quite a lot. And I know many people don't talk about it, but I will say it. Yeah, I will say it. So many people think that intuition and spiritual abilities and psychic abilities, you have to be trained. In a sense where you have to take a course. Or I spent 20 years in India, now I'm a guru and I know more than you. Please don't compare yourself to anyone. I would just tell you, don't even compare yourself to us. Don't even do that. I would just tell you this. No, we just tell you our experience. And so I've met quite a lot of people who are not even into that profession, right? They don't even have a psychic business, spiritual business, or whatever you want to call it. But they're very highly intuitive. And, you know, some of them they know, and some of them they don't know. You just tell them, hey, you know, you're highly intuitive. They're like, oh, no, but I'm not really into these things, or I don't really have a business, you know, just like, oh, you guys know what you're talking about. I'm like, don't do that. Don't compare yourself, and don't expect that if you buy a course, for example, that's all the time it's going to make you telepathic when you are not. It's either you have the gift or you don't. So let's say it's kind of like saying, I was talking to someone the other day. They said, oh, you know, Luna, I'm not really into art, and I can't just tell a person be artistic. Just grab and paint. They're gonna try to paint and be like, this is not happening, you know, and it's absolutely normal, because this is not the way how they feel and how they embrace this intuition. That person has completely other ways to do it, and I was so proud of her. I'm like, yeah, art is not the only way to get in touch with your intuition or you to do your gifts. And the truth is that there is not one way or another. You know, there's not a specific method how to awaken your intuition. You just have to trust yourself. And to trust yourself, it means that you have to let go of everything that you learned. I can't stress it enough. And this is exactly what you know, the difference between you and other people.
That's true. Very true. So let's move on to the third step, in which I pointed out in my video on Wednesday, which is becoming a giver and a receiver. Actually being able to open the doorway between your intuitive abilities and you, and understanding that energy goes both ways, in both directions, when you actually are tapping into your intuition. It's not just receiving energy from the universe, you're actually giving in return, because everything has the opposite reaction. And you have to understand that from your soul, you have to keep, you know, honing in on these abilities, but you also, to practice this, you have to give it. So in order to sort of like, it's okay, it's very basic, complicating it, but understanding how to become a psychic person or to enhance your abilities is practicing and using it. Using it for people, using it by yourself, using it. If you don't use the gift, it goes away. And then it comes back when you need it. So you have to understand that intuition is not about receiving messages only. It's about giving messages. Okay? So for me, having the ability to see things, the universe gives me the responsibility of telling people what I see. So like if I'll meet a friend and I feel like there's something that they need to see that I see, I have to tell them. Because it's like my intuitive sense tells me that this person needs to see what I see. And that is this part of being a spiritual person and actually enhancing your intuition. Is understanding that it's a two-way street. You don't only receive information, you give information. And then when you practice those abilities, then you master them. So that's the thing. It's like, I do see a lot of people using their intuition and saying, oh my God, I'm bringing messages and messages. But, you know, just telling those messages sometimes isn't good enough. You actually have to interpret it. You have to tell people what they mean. You have to go deeper into it. You have to give people life-changing energy just the way you have it. So, just like any gift, if you have it, give it. You know, if you have food in your fridge, give it to other people. That's what food is meant to be. It's a form of energy exchange. You know, the same way we get money, we give money. You know, like, it's energy. So intuition is the same thing, comes from the same place. When you get it, you give it. And it's funny because I find this to be the best way to actually start to master your intuitive abilities. Because you start practicing them every day, and you start to give the universe what it's giving to you. Otherwise, you get thrown a bunch of situations where you have to give, and you don't want to. So.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with that is your way, you know, of expressing your intuition and embracing it It doesn't necessarily have to be the same way as another person, but it's a great way to have how you say that, accountability partner, where you can just have someone to practice with. I practice with Lee all the time, so so just talking like, this is what I heard, this is what I saw, this is what's happening, and so when you talk about it, you make it real. When you're just like, oh, maybe I heard something, I saw something, I felt something, and you brush it off, this is when you doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, this is when intuition goes away. But when you talk with a friend, or if there's no one around, if you just grab your journal, you just write it down, or some other people just talk on your phone and just record it. When you record things, it's when you accept the intuition just coming forth. Every time you just like, maybe just a feeling. Every time that you're brushing it off, intuition starts fading because it goes back to hiding, in a sense.
I agree. So those are my initial steps to actually building your abilities over time. Intuition is a very interesting topic, but it's also so key to understanding who you are. I think that the most important thing about understanding intuition is understanding that, yes, it's always been there. It's in your senses, and you have to use it, and don't lose it, Open up your mind, open up your universal energy, and understand that you're part of everything. And then utilize the intuition to build spiritual abilities, like psychic abilities. Intuition is the key to understanding psychic abilities. But remember, there's always a curse to a gift, and illusion will always come. So, as you are a very intuitive person and you're watching this, you know that you have many, many situations that you're going to have to tell the difference between something that's an illusion and something that is real. It comes with the territory. So once you get to know those things and you get familiar, life gets easier for you. It's pretty fun. So that's my final advice. Any last words?
Yeah, so my advice is, I think I've said a couple times, through this life, but it's very, very important to go over, learn patterns, limiting beliefs, childhood trauma, and just take your time. It is not going to happen over time. I will just tell you that. It took me almost 2 decades, and still dealing with stuff. But every time that I heal something, and in a sense where every time I take a piece of myself back, from my past, I'm closer and closer to my intuition. And so I don't doubt myself, because I'm very, very sure of what I see, how I feel. And if there are those moments that I doubt, I always go back to the past and say, why am I doubting? And it is not about me not trusting my intuition. It is triggers. So is it a specific person who said something? What it reminds me of? Or is it a specific situation or a setting that I'm in? And it reminds me of something from my past. I always have to go back and define what exactly happened and what is the reason that I'm doing it right now. And the moment that I actually understand what happened, I resolve it. And I bring it back to myself and I say, okay, this is what I should be doing in this situation every time that I'm triggered. So at least I know. And that's the most important. So every time that you take a part of yourself back from your past, the closer you're with your intuition.
That's true. So, being honest about listening to your intuition, listening to your intuition it's about being aware that you're intuitive. It's about then understanding how your intuition affects your daily life. And then it's about using your intuition for good reason.
Yep.
And listening to intuition is more of a process. It is not something specific. And if you want to get better listening into intuition, follow those 3 steps in my opinion, and follow Luna's advice as well. And understanding past lives, understanding the present energy is very key. And so that's what it means to listen to intuition. And you have to know the whole process. You have to be aware of what intuition is, and also how it starts. It's very, very much important.
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions or if you have any story to share with intuition, just go ahead and share in the comments.
Yeah, feel free today, tomorrow, whenever, to just share your questions about intuition and how to build yours and problems that you've had as well. We are looking forward to hearing all those things.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, so it was great talking to you guys today. Next week, we're going to discuss intuition. No, not intuition. Intelligence. Specifically, it's going to be about, let's be honest, about discerning the truth and living in your truth. It's something that is, again, underestimated, but intelligence is so key to spirituality, and it is a gift. And we're going to show you how that is.
So excited about next week.
All right, so have a wonderful Friday, have a wonderful weekend, and for all of you on the other side of the world, happy Saturday morning, happy everything. Hey, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Great to have you. Happy everything, and remember, you can solve most things in life by being consciously aware of things. Once you are aware of something, your life changes right away. It's really cool. It's like magic.
Yeah.
All right. Be safe, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Have a beautiful Friday and beautiful weekend to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay, bye.